Hi there and welcome to Q&A Wednesday. I have to apologize. I'm running a little tardy today. It's been a very, very long day. It's spring break for my family, so we have decided to go and visit some family members. And of course, let me just tell you, no offense to the west side of Washington State. I am so glad I don't have to drive over here every day. I do not know how you guys handle the traffic over here. So that's kind of what put us a little late and getting to the hotel that we're staying at a little behind. So anyway, I apologize for being a few minutes tardy, but we have a great topic today. It actually came from one of our watchers, somebody that I know from one of the gyms I've worked at, super great gal. She wanted to know what the perfect body percentage is, or what should she be striving for. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today because it is important. And I know that there's a little bit of misconception as to what's appropriate and what, how far you really should get or what's realistic. So we're going to talk about that today. Pretty excited to be here. Of course, as always, we're going to make it quick tonight because we are going to, hey, Julie, go out and take my dad out to dinner. So, when it's spring break, you get to do some fun stuff. And of course, last week I was in California. I know I'm everywhere, aren't I? I'm just the traveling woman. That's one of the benefits of doing what I do is I get to kind of work from anywhere. And I love that about what I do and meeting new people. So it's really great. But let's talk about body fat percentages because, it's one of those things that I think people have the misconception that, it's really super important to get ridiculously lean. And of course, as women, that's really not appropriate. Hey, Amber, I haven't talked to her in forever. Because of course, as women, our bodies want to hold on to a certain amount of body fat because of course we have to support building babies. So it's a little different for us than it is for men. And if you've looked at some of the charts and things or the pictures that are posted on Pinterest or just Googling it on the internet, you can kind of see at what level what people in general look like. Now, there's some factors that are going to play into whether or not you're able to get to that point. But let's just kind of cover what they say is ideal for both men and women, and it's a little bit different. And of course, it depends on what chart that you're looking at. Now, it used to be that doctors for a lot of years, and even I'm really bothered by the fact that the military still goes with BMI, which is body mass index, and it's completely not appropriate because it's kind of the height versus weight ratio, and it's really generalized, and it really doesn't take into consideration a lot of factors such as genetics. And I mean, some people just have a little bit different descent and they're going to run a little bit bigger, and they might not even necessarily be unhealthy. The downside to BMI too is for things like people who have a lot of muscle and are really super lean. It can actually say that they are unhealthy because their weight proportionate to their height is really drastic. And of course, the generalization of that is that they weigh too much for their height, but it's muscle, it's not body fat. So, BMI is really outdated. It really doesn't give enough information. And so we go more by body fat percentage. And again, it depends on which chart that you're looking at, but in general, there is an essential amount of body fat that a person needs. Body fat does multiple things for you. It actually helps protect your organs. So a certain amount is needed. And of course, over time, our ancestors needed body fat for times of famine or starvation. And so having a little bit of body fat was important. When times became lean and food was scarce, their bodies were able to draw upon their body fat percentage in order to survive, obviously. And now in this day and age where you can walk around the corner and get a hamburger, we don't need the amount of body fat storage that we tend to have. So maintaining too much body fat is not necessarily healthy. So let's start with men just really quick. And of course, like I said, it's a little different because with testosterone and with they don't have to necessarily build a baby. So they're not going to necessarily need to carry as much body fat as a woman would. So essential for men, on the chart that I'm looking at right now, essential body fat for men is between 2 and 5%. And for anybody that follows bodybuilders, people in, a physique area where they have to get really lean in order to compete, that's really difficult to stay at. And so there's a reason that when people get on stage, they call it peaking, because there's a brief moment in time where they're supposed to look shredded, look specific, but that is really difficult to maintain off stage. stage. We're also going to talk about why that isn't necessarily mentally and emotionally appropriate as well. And it comes down to a little bit of balance, but we'll talk about that in a second. Athletic wise for men, between 6 and 13%. For fitness in general, 14 to 17%. For average, 18 to 24%. And then for men, anything over 25%, technically, they consider obese. Honestly, and men tend to carry their body fat in a little different area than women do. In general, it tends to be around the midsection. We call it the spare tire. The older that they get, the harder it is to lose. And if it becomes that hard fat, that's a problem, because that means where they're getting to a point where it's kind of enclosing onto their organs. It's kind of displacing their organs, and that can be a really serious issue. And so thanks, Amber. She's supporting what I'm telling you. So for women, again, it's a little bit different. We do tend to maintain a little more body fat. Essential for women is actually, they say 10 to 13%, but I'm going to tell you on stage, I am not 10%. I'm a little bit under that. So again, that's not something that my body can maintain. And so it's a brief moment that I hit there. For athletes, they say 14 to 20%. For fitness, 21 to 24%. For average women, it's 25 to 31%. And I'm going to say, honestly, that's approaching a little high, and 32% above is obese. And I don't have a chart here, but of course there's also percentages for morbidly obese. And unfortunately, in America, in the United States, it's becoming a little too commonplace to be overweight and even obese, and even it's trickling down into our adolescents and our children, and that is not okay. And it's completely unfortunate, because we are approaching the point where as adults, we will be outliving our children. It's supposed to get better and better, of course, as technology increases and information. Unfortunately, it's going the wrong direction. So that is an incredible problem that we have. I know we call it first world problems, but seriously, it is. It's definitely a problem to have our children be leaning towards a really high body fat percentage. And it comes down to the processed food, the sugar, the crap, and that it's the American staple, the American diet that's creating that. So we'll come back to that in a second. We just talked about that BMI is not appropriate. Because it just doesn't tell enough. Body fat is definitely a better option. Now I'm going to give you a couple of tips on that, because number one, I've done the handheld before, and I know a lot of people rely on that, or an in-body scan, and that's a good generalization. But I'm going to tell you, especially for those of us that tend to stay very well hydrated, because those scans go off bioimpedance, which means how much water, how much hydration your body's holding. And for those of us that drink plenty of water and stay really hydrated, it is not necessarily accurate. I know that it usually tells me that I'm about double what I know I am, because when I do it, I've been recently pinched with fat calipers. So don't freak out at the numbers. The benefit of getting your body fat percentage done on a regular basis is so you can watch the trend. I actually like to go off of more than just even the body fat percentage. And I definitely, as you know, don't rely solely on the scale. It does not give you enough information. Hi, Ian. I go off multiple measurement systems. I tape my people. I do ask them to go off of how their clothing fits, the clothing size, how their body's changing. I actually ask them to go off their energy level as well. I like them to do pictures, because I can pick out of those pictures. I can side by side pictures over a couple of weeks, and I can see the changes in the body. Most of you know that your body fat or your weight may not change, even if your body fat and your muscle development is. So because muscle weighs more than fat, and think about this, for the same volume, when you look at fat versus muscle, for the same volume of each of those, muscle for that volume will weigh about twice as much as that fat. So again, you can't go off the scale and define that as being accurate, because muscle is much, much more dense and it takes less space. So, I go back to pictures of how I looked, originally coming from 210 pounds way back when to coming down to 130. The first time down, I was about a size 6. Now when I'm at 130 pounds, I'm a size 2. So you just can't compare. It makes a difference as to what your body fat percentage is. So that is important. going off those other markers will give you much better information. And I know way too many people who put way too much trust in a scale, way too much importance in the scale, and it really can play head games, versus I see the changes, and they're really struggling over the fact that the scale isn't moving, but I'm going, okay, but you just dropped 2 pant sizes, so how is that not a great thing? So keep that in mind. As to what your ideal body fat percentage is, that's up to you in a couple of ways. You can see how it looks, according to those charts, what each of those percentages kind of looks like on a person, on both men and women, because it's going to be a little bit different. Again, women tend to hold body fat in a couple different places than men do. Because we produce more estrogen, we tend to hold a little bit in our triceps. We can hold it in our midsection. Part of that is genetic factors, but a lot of us as women tend to hold it in our hips and thighs as well. And men predominantly, as they put it on, tend to start around their midsection. And so again, it's going to look a little different for each gender, but that's part of it. The next thing that you have to think about is, how far do you really want to go? At some level, you're going to find that your body likes a certain spot. I mean, obviously we want to be as healthy as possible, make good choices, eat well, exercise, but you're going to find that your body's kind of comfortable in a spot, and that to get any further, you're going to have to make some specific choices as to whether or not you're willing to sacrifice things that you might really love, like maybe a drink once in a while here and there. Obviously, I'm not a big fan of drinking all the time, because while alcohol doesn't necessarily cause fat, it does prevent your body from burning fat, because your metabolism has to deal with that first for multiple reasons. But you might have to give up, an occasional chocolate or birthday cake. So, when you get to that point of, okay, I kind of like how I look, I like how I feel, I like where I am, do you want to go the next step? Like I said, I don't have any desire to maintain a 6% body fat percentage on a regular basis, because that means I literally am going to eat, breathe, and live being super, super lean. And that's not even fun. Not only that, my body is going to fight me every step of the way. So trying to stay at 6% as a woman is absolutely ridiculous. Even those fitness models that you follow on Instagram and Facebook, they have to live a very specific lifestyle. And of course, the younger they are, the easier it's going to become. At some point, when you start having babies and other things, your body chemistry changes and it doesn't react the same. So it's going to be more and more difficult to follow that. But, at 43 years old, in order to maintain under 12%, hi Paula, I have to do some very specific things, like cut out sugar. Like, I get no sugar. I don't eat processed food. I don't ever eat fast food, because first of all, it's disgusting. But I don't eat out very often either, because I can't necessarily control how that food's being prepared. Even if I think that it's being prepared in a decent way, I don't always know. So right now I'm very, very specific as to how I eat. Now, do I cut chocolate out completely? Oh, heck no. I mean, come on. Y'all know that caramel M&Ms are crack. And if I open a bag, I can't stop eating them. So, but I do make myself earn those. Okay. That's super important to know. I personally think that skinny is a 4-letter word. I don't like the word skinny. I don't like when people tell me I'm looking skinny. I usually say, tell me that again and see what happens. Skinny is not necessarily equate with healthy. We all know skinny fat people. The downside to being skinny is that a lot of times, because the weight doesn't come on or the body fat show like it can on some of us, endomorphs that tend to put fat back on fast, a lot of health problems can be overlooked because you can't tell, right? They're skinny, so they look like they're probably healthy, but skinny fat is a real thing. I've actually literally seen skinny people who are obese. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's true. They literally have so much body fat, so much of themselves is body fat, and so little is lean muscle mass that they're actually considered fat. So Amber says that I am lean and fit. I hope so. I'm working on it. Had to put some size back on, Amber. I lost a lot last year. It was really disturbing, but that's a story all in itself for another time. So again, optimum for women, in general, best idea is somewhere between 16 and 25%. Under a certain percentage, there's some significant health problems that start to happen, especially for women. We can actually stop having our menses, which our body, it's because we just don't have enough nutrients to support that. We can start having some problems like osteoporosis can be in the future. That runs in my family, so I'm very aware of that, and I take my calcium. So, again, lower than 10% is probably unsustainable for women in general. And 2 to 3% is absolutely necessary to live. It's ridiculous to even think that it's okay to live under that. So Amber says I can have some of her size. So share it, girl. I'm ready. So just some tips, focus on the right things, guys. Focus on what your body fat percentage is. There's obviously things that you can do to help improve on that. So things like eating clean. I'm still flabbergasted when I work with people with nutritional counseling at how many people think that there are processed foods that are still healthy. No offense, guys, protein cookies are not healthy. You cannot eat 3 of them and think that you're okay. Protein cookies still contain quite a bit of sugar, and it is a processed food. So those are, I don't even believe that they're a better option. I'm gonna eat super, super clean. So if I want a freaking cookie, I'm gonna eat a real cookie because it tastes better, and I deserved it. I earned it. I made myself do the work to get there. So keep that in mind. The cleaner that you can eat, cut out processed foods, cut out sugar, and watch for sneaky sugar. Read the ingredient labels. Anything and ose is a sugar. And even sucralose, which is Splenda, is not necessarily your best option. I know that I've used that in the past. And if I'm eating a carb alongside that, a complex carb, I might use a little bit of that. But even Splenda can actually spike your insulin, which we talked about last week. So keep that in mind. Don't be afraid of lean muscle. Ladies, it's not just men. I do have more muscle than the average woman. Oh, Paula's lost 3 pounds. Girl, I'm so proud of you. I told you, just keep track of your food. It makes such a huge difference. Don't be afraid, ladies. I lift ridiculously heavy in order to put on the size that I do have, and I still think I'm small. So realize that, when girls are like, well, yeah, I lift 5s, I'm like, okay, we need to have a conversation. You can't get bulky. As women, we just don't produce enough testosterone, nor do we eat enough food. Now, if you're building a significant amount of muscle and not watching your food and eating a bunch of junk, yeah, you might look like you're feeling bulky, because as I tell people, lifting does not make you bulky, but cupcakes will. So when you put that muscle underneath the fat and don't work on burning that fat, that can actually be a problem and look bulky. And know what your balance is. Know what you can handle. I'm sorry, like I said, I cannot handle completely cutting out chocolate for the rest of my life. That's a no-go. I like chocolate. That's something that, although I don't eat that on a regular basis to eat my feelings, although I have, it's something that I enjoy, and I'm not going to completely cut that out of my life. So for those of you that aren't sure where you want to go, you know what? Go baby steps. Go ahead and look at those pictures, those charts like on Pinterest, and kind of see where it is that you kind of think that you want to be. And then look at the next level down. Look at the one under you and have that be your first focus. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed or like it's undoable. When I first started, there's no way that I believed that I was ever going to be this lean. This has taken 8+ years to get to. And so I really do giggle when people tell me, well, I want to be where you are, or I've actually, that's a long story, but it's taken me a long time to get here. When I first walked down and I was at 25% for the first time since I was probably 18, I was thrilled. Now when I get to 18, I'm annoyed with myself, but it's taken this much time to get to where I am. And my happy level is a much better body fat percentage than it used to be. So anyway, hopefully that helps. If you guys have questions, please ask. That was a question from somebody who watches. I appreciate Cammie for that. Thank you. Please leave a message below. Pass this on to your friends. I really want people to understand that health is a lifestyle, not a diet, not temporary. It's something that, it's not how quickly we take it off, it's how long can we keep it off, and how can we do that in a way that helps us to be healthy and happy, both mentally and physically. So have an incredible week, you guys. Hopefully the sun is shining where you are. We're gonna go spend some time tonight as a family. I look forward to Meals with Melissa on Saturday. It will be at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I haven't decided quite what I'm doing. I've got multiple options. Oh, and by the way, as zucchini season rolls in, I got some great ideas for you guys. So if you guys are growing, I know I've been in the past, we've had a garden and just had zucchini explosions. So might as well know how to use that stuff because it does taste great. So have an incredible evening, guys, and we'll see you next time. Good night.